The Catholic channel Sirius XM 129 presents Sounds from the Spires with Dr. Jennifer Pascual, music director of St. Patrick's Cathedral.
And you're listening to Sounds from the Spires on the Catholic channel of Sirius XM 129. And today I have a very special guest. It's Carlos Ibay, who I just met yesterday. And we're recording today on a Monday. It's Monday, the 23rd of October. But I just met him yesterday here at St. Patrick's Cathedral. He and his wife, Levancy, had celebrated their first wedding anniversary yesterday, and they came to the choir loft and stayed with us during Mass. And then Carlos played the wonderful Promenade by McNeil Robinson after the Mass. So, Carlos, welcome to Sounds from the Spires, and thank you for reaching out to me and introducing yourself to me and sharing your music with us.
Oh, it is a pleasure. It was my pleasure to play something which actually you inspired me to play, Jenny. You know, listening to your recital, and that piece particularly spoke to me. So the next day I found a recording on YouTube and learned it. And now, you know, I shared it with my brothers and sisters at St. Patrick's Cathedral.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And it was really special. I actually didn't know a whole lot about you before I met you yesterday. And then just you sending me all of these recordings in the last 3 hours, I feel like you're my best friend now. So thank you for sharing your story, sharing your wonderful music, and goodness, I mean, you've accomplished so much. I have to say that Carlos is a kababayan. He's a fellow Filipino American and a musician. And you also study with teachers from Manus and Eastman. So I feel like we should have met a long time ago, but we didn't.
Yes, well, I'm proud to say that I had a long association, knowing you once studied at Eastman. I didn't go to Eastman myself, but my dear piano teacher, Thomas Schumacher, who is now in San Diego on retirement, also taught there for many, many years.
Right. And Carlos is so talented. We'll hear his music throughout the hour today, but and totally smart. Carlos is fluent in 7 languages besides English. And so it's just amazing how you absorb the music and the language of music also. And you just become fluent in it all. It's really great. Carlos, why don't you tell us your story? Your parents are originally from the Philippines. You mentioned that your mom was from Manila and your dad from Pangasinan, or the other way around. But you were born in Virginia?
Yes, I was born in Fairfax, Virginia. Uh-huh. I was born 3 months premature. I weighed only 1.5 pounds. The doctors had advised my mother to abort me, but fortunately, I can say that it was wonderful to be born here, you know, to come out into the world. And that is another thing with my wife. My wife was also born 3 months premature.
Oh, wow. So you have that in common.
Yes. And actually, I did experience an organ. You know, we're talking about organs here. When I was 2 years old, we didn't have a piano here at the time. So I found my way to the organ. It was a Hammond organ. So I discovered the notes to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. So my parents tell me, my mom told me that I actually just climbed up, and I, without, you know, banging or trying to reach for the notes, I actually knew the song by heart.
Wow. Just by touching the keyboard for the first time?
Yes.
I mean, that's like genius level, Carlos. Yeah. And so you learn everything by hearing, and
yes,
you almost instantly play it as soon as you hear it.
As soon as I hear it, with longer pieces, for example, like the rock third, rock second, you know, it does take me longer because of, you know, the length of the piece. But I just want to tell the radio audience, especially those of you who play a lot of Schubert, I was able to learn the Schubert B-flat major piano sonata, the number 21, which is a favorite of mine, and a long one too. I was able to learn that whole sonata in 5 days.
Wow. Goodness. How old were you at that time?
I was actually, it was recent. It was fairly recent. So I was 40
okay.
And listened to many recordings, but my favorite recording was Richter, you know, because
of course,
the way he plays it, it's just amazing. When I learn music, I'm going to segue into this. When I learn pieces of music, I never listen to just one recording for fear that I might sound like that artist. That's why when I learn a piece of music, or I'm listening to a piece of music for the first time, I listen to many artists
Mhm.
both the professionals and the amateurs. And that's why I thank God for YouTube having the capability of slowing things down without changing pitch. I used to learn by tape, cassette tape. You would slow the tape recorder down, it slows down by an octave. Then came the CD players, and then now YouTube, you can learn a piece just by, I even learned my jazz piano that way.
Uh-huh.
The
Uh-huh.
Art Tatum arrangements, George Shearing arrangements, slow those down, and you can really hear the notes more clearly.
Yeah, it's amazing how you can just hit pause and you can repeat something over and over again and learn it. Carlos, if I may, the audience probably doesn't know that you were born with visually impaired. Are you completely visually impaired, or can you see a little bit?
Like I said, I was born 3 months premature, and when I
Huh.
was in the incubator, too much oxygen deprived me of my eyesight. So I really
Ah,
have been blind. I have been blind since infancy, but
yeah.
I am able to perceive light.
Huh.
If it's sunny or
Interesting.
I can tell when it's day or night.
Yeah, that's wonderful. But when you play like day and night. You can give these feelings of sunshine and sadness in your playing. So let's listen to some of Carlos's playing. This is a little bit of Tchaikovsky First Concerto. I wish we could hear everything, but if you go to YouTube and put Carlos Ibay, you can find him. That's Carlos Ibay. And we'll listen to a little bit of Tchaikovsky 1. And this is the Manassa Symphony Orchestra under the baton of James Villani. Carlos is our guest today, and he's the performer on this recording. And you just listened to a little bit of Tchaikovsky First Concerto. Our guest today, Carlos Ibay is the soloist on that recording, live recording, and he's also our guest today. That was with the Manasa Symphony Orchestra under the baton of James Villani. And you're listening to Sounds from the Spires on the Catholic channel of Sirius XM 129. I'm Dr. Jennifer Pascual, your host, and Carlos Ibay is our guest. Wonderful playing, and it's just amazing that we've not met. And, you know, the Filipino music world is such a small world that we haven't met. And so I'm very thankful that you reached out to me and we met yesterday, and hopefully we'll see each other again soon. But tell us about your learning music as a child. You touched an organ for the first time at age 2 and was able to play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. I guess at that point, your parents knew that there was something there and, you know, a little genius there. What happened after that? Who did you study with after that?
Well, my first real piano teacher was an exchange student from Argentina. Mm-hmm. That's my connection with that country.
Okay.
For 2 years. And then I worked with Thomas Schumacher at the University of Maryland, mm-hmm. Privately. And he also taught at this place called the Levine School of Music in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. Him, and I also credit the late, great Dr. Thomas Mastroianni, who taught at Catholic University, who was also a good friend of Tom's, and because they both studied under the same teacher, Beveridge Webster, at the Juilliard School of Music.
Yeah, and Carlos, you're also a fabulous singer on top of being a pianist and an organist. When did you start singing?
I started singing and playing the piano at the same time when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
And then my voice lessons began, obviously, when I was 15. Usually for males, it's 18. For females, it's 17. But actually, I had, some singing because I used to imitate all the opera singers when I was 12, all the tenors, the great tenor.
Uh-huh.
Of course, I had to pay back for it. But then, of course, with proper training, and it's really not a question about, the position when you sing. When you play for yourself, I mean, you are still breathing, from your diaphragm, and also giving that support. But also, it's playing the piano while singing has been something that has been inseparable for me ever since I've done it. And
yes.
Our listeners will probably see that when they hear Nessun Dorma from Puccini's Turandot, which I did as an encore with the McLean Symphony, and the late, great Dingwall Fleary, who was just a wonderful guide in my musical journey, playing with orchestra. It's something that I dearly love, because you get not only to play with other people, but you also get to interact socially with them.
Yes, of course. Yes, that's the wonderful thing about chamber music and playing with orchestra players, is that you're not all alone on the stage by yourself or all alone in a practice room, but you get to associate with people. And that's wonderful that you have these great experiences. So let's listen now to Nessun Dorma as sung by our guest today, Carlos Ibay, and it'll be a unique performance of it because along with the McLean Symphony under the baton of Dingwall Fleary, Carlos is also playing the piano as he is singing with the orchestra. And you just listened to the Christmas song performed by Carlos Ibay and Lavancy Ingram. And just before the break, you heard Nessun Dorma with Carlos singing and playing the piano along with the McLean Symphony under the baton of Maestro Dingwall Fleary. And you're listening to Sounds from the Spires on the Catholic channel of Sirius XM 129. I'm Dr. Jennifer Pascual, your host, and Carlos Ibay is our wonderfully talented guest today. And so happy anniversary to you and to Lavancy. You just celebrated your first year anniversary yesterday, and they were here in New York. They live in Virginia, but they were here in New York. So wonderful that you were able to spend it here in the city with some friends. Tell us about Lavancy. She's a violinist too, right? And so you make a lot of music together?
Yes, we make a lot of music together, and we went up to New York for our anniversary because my friend from Italy, Carla, was visiting her friend, Millie, and was going to cook a complete meal from start to finish for us. So that's what took place on Saturday. And then, as you know, Dr. Pascual, I reached out to John Peragallo, the fellow who built the organ at St. Andrew the Apostle here in Clifton, Virginia, and asked him if I could come down to New York and play the organ at St. Patrick's Cathedral. And I am so, grateful to him and to you, and even to Dr. Daniel Brondell, for the privilege to play, the organ. Like I was telling you this morning, I was really moved, to the point of tears yesterday, because it was like a dream come true for me to play the organ at St. Patrick's. I know that's not an easy place to play at
right.
Give a recital, and it would be a dream someday to actually be included on the Kilgan recital series.
Sure. We definitely have to do that. And I just have to tell the audience that Carlos came yesterday. I'd never met him before. He came to the choir loft for Mass. He sat down, never having played this organ before. And it's a gargantuan instrument. And he just sat down and played like he had been playing it for forever. So wonderful playing yesterday, and wonderful recordings that you've shared with me in the last couple hours and that we're sharing with the audience today. You're so talented. Keep it up. You are really great. And so how often do you and Lavancy play together? Do you do also violin and organ music with her? Yeah.
Well, yes. As a matter of fact, when we perform, we're music ministry at my parish, St. Mary of Sorrows. We play on first Saturdays at the 9:15 daily mass, because I do the communion meditation, and of course we stay for First Saturday adoration. I assist at her church as well, and then on some of the organ recitals that I've given, she has been violin soloist. But we play once a month at an Italian restaurant here in Alexandria called the Trattoria da Franco for their monthly opera night. And if there are any people listening to this broadcast on the Catholic channel of Sirius XM who are in Virginia at the moment, we will be playing this Sunday from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Trattoria da Franco, 305 South Washington Street, Alexandria, Virginia. And the number to call for reservations is 703-548-9338.
Wow, I wish I lived closer. I would come. I'd go for Italian food and listen to you play. Yeah, so if you're in the Alexandria area, do check it out. Carlos Ibay will be playing there at Trattoria da Franco. And also, Carlos, you're so talented. You speak so many languages. You speak French, German, Italian, Spanish, Russian, Japanese, Portuguese, English, a little bit of Tagalog. Tell us about Cielito Lindo. This was a cute music track that you had sent me, a live performance, of course, part of a mariachi experience. And I know you're fluent in Spanish. Tell us about this, Cielito Lindo.
Well, the Mariachi Imperio was hired by somebody from Sacred Heart who knew the band leader. And it has been one of my bucket list wishes to perform with a mariachi. And I know lots and lots of songs in Spanish. And Cielito Lindo was the only one that came to my mind because, of course, it's popular. People know it. And because there are a lot of Hispanics and Mexicans in particular, Salvadorians at Sacred Heart, where my wife goes to church, I decided to do that number. And, of course, the audience really ate it up. They were singing with me, as you can hear in the video. And I really, really enjoyed it. And they said only one song. Okay. All right. So,
yeah.
So I was very grateful to the band leader to let me do that.
Yeah, that's fun. And in honor of Hispanic American Heritage Month, let's listen to Cielito Lindo, and you can hear Carlos singing. And you just heard a little bit of Cielito Lindo and Carlos Ibay as our guest. He was the singer on that wonderful mariachi recording, live recording outdoors. You're so versatile. You're a singer. You can speak so many languages. You're a pianist. You're an organist. And so thank you for sharing your talents and your story with us. You're listening to Sounds from the Spires on the Catholic channel of Sirius XM 129. I'm Dr. Jennifer Pascual, your host, and Carlos Ibay is our guest. So, Carlos, how did you get to start working at St. Andrew the Apostle Parish?
My previous pastor, Father Jerome Fazano, who I'm very good friends with him, I played there on a Wednesday night for Holy Hour, and it was a regular up until Father's transferred to another parish, and then it became Thursday night. And I played continuously for the traditional Latin masses, and up until the start of the pandemic, when I lost that job. And now we're back to Wednesdays, but the mass now is at 8 p.m. and we don't have any music for that mass. I guess everything has its end, but it was wonderful to work there. And now that they have a Peragalo organ, I play sometimes for midnight mass for New Year's, because Father Fasano started a holy hour at 11 p.m. and a mass at midnight to open the new year.
Right. Yeah, that's very popular in some parishes.
So that's what I'm doing.
It's very late. And then you have to compete with all the people who want to watch fireworks wherever they are.
That's right.
Yeah. So wonderful that you're sharing all of this with us. One of the experiences that you shared with me is that you have played at St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, which is every Catholic's highest honor, to be able to play at St. Peter's and for a pope. And you've met two popes, correct?
I've met a saint, and I've met a saint in the works. I was blessed by Saint John Paul II, whose feast we celebrated yesterday.
Right.
Hence, my wife and I getting married on that day. And then
Oh.
I was blessed and even embraced by Pope Francis.
Oh.
And he spent time with us, with me and my mom. And I was able to, carry on a small conversation with him in Spanish, of course.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's fabulous. You've met two popes, and I watched a little bit of an interview you had done with EWTN, and you mentioned that when you spoke to Saint John Paul, that you love Chopin, and because Chopin was Polish, you mentioned this to the Pope. How did he react to that?
He said to me, "Pregheremo insieme." Let's pray together.
Oh,
that's what he said to me. So every time I play Chopin, I always, have a quick thought, for him.
Yeah.
And Jenny, you as a pianist yourself, besides being an organist, I'm sure you play a little bit of Chopin.
I did. Well, when I finished my master's degree in piano performance, I said, this really is not the world for me. I mean, I know I wanted to work for a church, and I continue to this day, but being a concert pianist is not something that I have done, or it's not a part of my life. The last time I played something by Chopin for memory was 11 years ago.
No, but
So yeah, but you're the talent. You're the one who needs to showcase the Chopin. So that's your world, and keep it up. But in the meantime, let's listen to Carlos singing the Schubert Ave Maria, and this is inside St. Peter's Basilica during the celebration of the Eucharist by now Cardinal Tagle, who works in the Vatican. And this was in 2013 on the occasion of blessing the mosaic image of the Filipino saint, Saint Pedro Calungsod, by His Holiness Pope Francis. And this also being Filipino American Heritage Month, it's great that we are able to play this recording for that specific purpose. And again, Carlos and his mom were able to meet Pope Francis. He blessed the image of the Filipino saint Pedro Calungsod. And so let's listen to Schubert Ave Maria as sung and played by Carlos Ibay inside St. Peter's Basilica at the Vatican. And you just listened to Georges Bizet's Agnus Dei. And just before the break, you listened to Schubert's Ave Maria as played and sung by Carlos Ibay inside St. Peter's Basilica. That was in 2013 on the occasion of the blessing of the mosaic image of the Filipino Saint Pedro Calungsod by Pope Francis. And you're listening to Sounds from the Spires on the Catholic channel of Sirius XM 129. I'm Dr. Jennifer Pascual, your host, and our talented Carlos Ibay is our guest today. He is the soloist that you've been listening to, singing and playing and hearing his story. And the Bizet Agnus Dei is a recording that took place, a live recording from Buenos Aires at the Most Blessed Sacrament Basilica during communion, where Carlos was playing and singing at the same time as well. And you mentioned, Carlos, that was the last performance you gave before the pandemic?
Yes, I would like to share the story of how I got that privilege.
Sure.
So I met one of the people at the Teatro Colón, who was a mezzo-soprano, Trinidad Goyeneche, and she was singing that same piece with Matias Sagreras, who is the titular organist at the Basílica del Santísimo Sacramento in Buenos Aires. She gave me his telephone number, and I reached out to him, and I told him that I'm from the States and visiting Buenos Aires on holiday and would love to be able to play the organ and sing for a mass, And he was very accommodating and let me use this wonderful Cavaille called 4-manual organ at this basilica, and got to do 3 pieces, of which you heard the second one that was actually a bis after the recessional hymn during the second Sunday, I believe, of Lent. So
Wow.
How appropriate.
Yeah. And that's amazing. You've played a Cavaille. I have not played a Cavaille. That's on my bucket list. How was that instrument?
Wonderful. The only lament I have is it did not. I was looking for a 32-foot bombard, and even before I joined the American Guild of Organists, I knew what a 32-footer was. The 2 things I look for whenever I find an organ are a 32-foot bombard and the chimes.
Yes. Wow. Yeah, and you found a 32-foot bombard here at St. Patrick's.
Thanks to Daniel.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So thank you for sharing that.
I love the piece he played as a postlude, by the way. I don't know what it was, but I'm going to learn it now.
Oh, the Bruns, yes. Yeah. And you can also go onto YouTube and just keep listening to him playing it over and over again. That'll help you. Now, Carlos, you also have played for President George Bush and Vice President Al Gore. How did that happen?
Let me begin. Vice President Al Gore, the Levine School of Music here in D.C., was showcasing a couple of their artists. And at the time, myself and 3 other students of Thomas Schumacher and a couple of violinists played at the Vice President's mansion. It was in 1993. And I, played a couple of pieces on his piano. And for G.W. Bush, I joined the Rubinstein International Master Piano Competition, but I only got through the first stage. But I went to God's country thinking, okay, I was going to make it. And so I prayed. I said, Lord, give me a sign that you enjoyed my stay here in Israel. Because, it is God's country after all. And it's
yes,
chosen people. Pray for those people. I mean, they're going through
of course.
But
no.
So I got a special invitation. 2008, the state of Israel was celebrating 60 years, and George W. Bush was one of the invitees. Myself and another pianist from Israel, we were representing the 2 nations. I think it was to celebrate the friendship between Israel and the United States.
Oh.
So we played a movement from Darius Milhaud's Scaramouche, and on 2 pianos, of course, because the theme, I guess, was about friendship between United States and Israel, and they did have 2 pianos in this big conference center.
Yeah,
and a lot of dignitaries were there. In the audience, Tony Blair, Mikhail Gorbachev was also there.
Wow,
and just many. And then I believe it was Donald Rumsfeld who was the master of ceremonies.
Those are big hitter names. Yeah, good for you for playing for something that was so high profile. Good for you. Great experience. Yeah, thank you for sharing your story. And we mentioned that Carlos has played on the Paragala organ at St. Andrew the Apostle. And during the pandemic, he did an entire long concert on November 22nd, which is the Feast of St. Cecilia. And this was in 2020 when I think people were not returning to church at this point. And you gave a wonderful concert, Caccini, Mozart, William Tell, and some fun stuff as well. So let's listen to a little bit of some fun, unrehearsed, improvised themes from Phantom of the Opera. And this is Carlos Ibay again, our guest today, improvising on themes from Phantom of the Opera, completely unrehearsed, just straight from his brain to his fingers to the organ. And you just listened to some improvised, unrehearsed themes from Phantom of the Opera. And that was performed during the pandemic on November 22nd, Feast of St. Cecilia. And that was 2020 at St. Andrew the Apostle Church in Clifton, Virginia. You're listening to Sounds from the Spires on the Catholic channel of Sirius XM 129. Carlos, we only have 3 minutes left. What are some bucket list things that you have yet to do? I mean, you've played at Carnegie Hall, you've played at the Kennedy Center, you've played for popes and presidents. What's next?
Well, I would love to play, in other cities around the world. with orchestra, and just even outside the United States. Now, I would love to travel to London, Paris, maybe,
Yeah.
and play on some of those big named organs like Saint-Sulpice, and give recitals in famous named halls like the Concertgebouw in
Oh,
Amsterdam,
right.
and also Wigmore, Royal Albert. And I wouldn't mind giving a piano and vocal recital at, of all places, Milan's La Scala. I'm sure
Uh-huh.
that can be done.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, that's great. You set your goals and you never know. It'll all happen. I mean, you're so talented and you're a wonderful, nice person. So I know you can make these things happen. You played with the Manila Symphony Orchestra as well?
I did.
Yeah. When was that?
2011. We played the
2011.
Mozart. We played the Mozart A major piano concerto,
Uh-huh.
and I got to sing a few songs such as Some Enchanted Evening, E Luceva le Stelle, Mattinata, and Granada.
Uh-huh.
And we did an encore. I did a Tagalog song with them as
Yeah.
well. It was 2011. Or I think it was February 5,
Right.
if I'm not mistaken. That was such a wonderful experience, to play with an orchestra in the land of my parents' birth.
That's right. You know what you should do sometime? The next time you're in Manila, I don't know how frequently you go, is to go to the bamboo organ in Las Piñas. That's my mother's hometown. Do you know about that instrument?
Oh, yes, yes. I've heard about it, and I would love to try playing McNeil Robinson on that.
Oh, it's not the right repertoire for that instrument. You have to play early stuff on that instrument. It's a Baroque Spanish instrument. One manual. Pedals are pull down. They're not even like AGO specification pedals. It's like your old Baroque Italian or Spanish instrument built by a Spanish priest. But Carlos, I look forward to seeing you again at some point. Thank you for sharing your music, your story, and great to meet you in Lavancy yesterday. Happy anniversary again. Congratulations to all your concerts. And everybody, stay tuned next week for Sounds from the Spires on the Catholic Channel. But before we leave, we're going to finish with Carlos playing the Vidor Toccata. And stay tuned next week for Sounds from the Spires. Thank you to Robert for editing. Thank you to Carlos for being on the program today. And see you next week. Have a great week.